Hello people of the internet, welcome back. In this video I'm going to be talking about something that people ask me a lot and kind of expect me to have opinions on, but I'm still not really sure why, and that's the concept of people who have a mild to moderate hearing loss using the term deaf to describe themselves. Basically, I think people have this idea that people with profound hearing loss, like myself, own the term deaf, and that being deaf and being hard of hearing are two very separate things, and you shouldn't like cross them over. There's not like crossover. If you have mild to severe hearing loss, you are hard of hearing, and then if you have a profound hearing loss, you are deaf. There's no like other options. But I think it's one of those things where it's not as cut and dry as that. And to be honest, like when I first lost my hearing, it did kind of annoy me a bit because as someone who had very normal sounding speech, but with profound hearing loss, and I was using hearing aids at the time. I didn't have a cochlear implant, and I wasn't very good at lip reading at the time. I'm getting better, but I'm still not great. And when I would tell people that I was deaf, people would find it, I just felt like people weren't getting it. They'd be like, oh, what, do you have like a mild hearing loss? Or they'd just assume that my hearing wasn't that bad, like I could still hear them when I really couldn't. And it did annoy me. I was like, no, I'm like completely deaf. And I was like, there needs to be like a different sort of vocabulary to describe the fact that I cannot hear anything, and that the word deaf wasn't seeming to do it. And then I went and I got a cochlear implant. So now I'm still technically profoundly deaf. Like when I take off my processor, I hear nothing at all. So I'm still profoundly deaf, but when I have it on, I can hear a decent amount. Like I don't hear like a hearing person would hear, but I can hear. And then I'm like, well, I just kind of use the term deaf and hard of hearing interchangeably depending on what I feel like makes the most sense in that situation. So in situations where it's like someone, like I'm at the checkout at Tesco or something, and I need to explain the fact that I'm struggling to hear them, I'll normally say that I'm hard of hearing because I feel like that requires less explanation for people. I think in that situation, that's the least confusing thing I can say. But then if it's people that I'm going to be spending a lot of time around, I tend to tell them that I'm profoundly deaf, because I think if you're going to be spending a lot of time around me, that's important to know. Especially if I'm like living with people and I'm going to be taking on and off my cochlear implant. I don't want people to think that I can still hear a bit when I don't have my cochlear implant on, because that's just wrong. I can't. So with people with like mild hearing losses, I think their relationship with the words deaf and hard of hearing are probably a bit different. Like a lot of people with mild hearing loss, I think people tend to assume like, oh well, you're not like all the way deaf, so I can just treat you like you can hear me, and don't seem to realise how much their hearing loss can actually impact their life. Or they feel bad using up resources for the real deaf people. Like they feel like, oh, I can't complain because it's not that bad, or I don't need to learn sign language even though it would be helpful for me. They feel like they shouldn't ask people to use sign language with them because they're hearing loss isn't bad enough to warrant it, which is a bit silly, really. Like, if it helps you, use it. And if the label deaf helps you get what you need, use it. Like, I mean, words are just made up by people to just make things clearer. So if it makes things clearer and it helps people understand your reality, then just use it. Like, I think, but then, yeah, and then if you have a mild hearing loss and you don't have your hearing aids on, if you tell people, oh, I'm, mildly hard of hearing, and people will, if you have your hearing aids off, talk to you like you can hear them, and you might not be able to. And I think that's quite like a difficult situation to be in. So, yeah, I think it is definitely important to make sure that you communicate what you need in the way that makes the most sense in that situation. And if that means you have a mild hearing loss and you're calling yourself deaf, do it. Like, it's kind of, yeah, like, I'm technically profoundly deaf and I use the term hard of hearing sometimes, and some people might say that, sometimes I feel a bit like, oh, am I stepping on the toes of people that are really hard of hearing, or am I not claiming my deafness proudly, or that sort of stuff. But if it makes the most sense in that situation, just use it. And it's like, if you, I don't know, might technically be bisexual, but you've been in a same-sex relationship for the last 20 years and you're married to that person and you call yourself gay or a lesbian, I feel like that's just like, you don't, like, I feel like that's just like, yeah, okay, you do you. Like, it doesn't really impact anyone. So yeah, this is just a thing of like, use the term that makes the most sense in your situation. Don't worry too much about what other people think. And if you have a mild hearing loss, you are valid. You are, I mean, the term like valid, I find it a little bit annoying. People are like, oh yeah, you're valid. Like, do you really need that like external validation? And if you feel you're valid, then you are. And yeah, you can ask for help. You can learn sign language and use sign language. You are part of the deaf community. Yeah, just live your life, people. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye. I'd love to hear from people in the comments who are mildly or moderately deaf about their opinions on this and how they feel about it. Yeah, bye.